Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about my friggin' bookshelves. So I did in my recent Storygraph recommendations vlog, if you watched it, you saw me rearrange my shelves slightly. And I had recorded already an overview of what the shelves are now, but I actually want to change it further. So I'm gonna change it further and then do an overview thing, an overview tour, what have you. So it's gonna actually look different than what it does right now behind me, because that's what I want to change. I want to change this shelf over here because it's nonfiction stuff, and I do read nonfiction sometimes and enjoy it, but I don't know, it's not a thing. So I don't really think I want those books displayed in my videos. You know, I want my video, what you see in my videos. For me, it makes sense for it to be what I'm about in my reading, what kind of reader am I, right? And I'm not that much of a nonfiction reader, so I'm gonna move that. But that's really all I'm gonna change from what it is currently. But then once I change that, I'll do my little overview tour and pop that in here. Okay, here are the shelves. This bookcase here is largely fantasy stuff, but there at the top, that is just some literary and general fiction, mostly Ian McEwan books, as you can see. Definitely have room to grow into that. I don't read a bunch of that, so makes sense that there's less books there. And then below is same as before. This is the Song of Ice and Fire, George R. R. Martin, Westeros, Essos, etc. And below the George R. R. Martin shelf is the Michael J. Sullivan World of Elon shelf. And down here is what I just changed. This was nonfiction. This shelf and this now empty shelf were some nonfiction. So I moved over this shelf, which is graphic novels and then some other favorites that are mostly young adult. There's one book on here I have not read, that is Dear Justice, but I've read Dear Martin and Pride, I'll Give You the Sun, Skies Everywhere, Jane Steele, and then the Conqueror's Saga there to the right. And those are all some faves for me, some fave young adult. Mostly there's historical, and then there's contemporary, and yeah, I like them. And then I don't have a lot of graphic novels, but I do have some, and I have my special editions of Book 1 and Book 2 of Monstrous. Behind that is the rest of Monstrous, Book 2, and then Watchmen and Middle West. So yeah, I figured this shelf can just, I don't know, grow into some more fantasy stuff, probably. So now this bookcase is slightly different. Up here is still historical fiction that I have read mostly. There's a couple I haven't, but... And then that is the read thing, the book there on the right. It was a housewarming gift from my mom when I bought my house. Love that. And down here was the historical fiction shelf that was mostly unread historical fiction. And I read historical fiction, and I do really like some of it, but I don't read it that much. So I figured I would make this another favorites shelf, because that's what this is down below. This is fantasy favorites. So this is just kind of extended favorites. City of Brass, the trilogy ended up not being a favorite, but I did still really like that first book, so I kept it. And special edition there, or I don't know, special edition, but a different edition of Left Hand of Darkness. Definitely special edition of Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. Love that thing. And then my bookmark clips and a couple of my Funkos. All the Pusheen Funkos. That little guy there. Those are mine, that I got, or people got for me and I paid them back. But then the little cat right there, that's Socks from Buzz Lightyear. My boyfriend and I loved the cat in Buzz Lightyear, and so he bought us these matching Funkos. And then the Polly Pocket is one that he got for me one night. I was drunk talking about my childhood and talking about how much I loved Polly Pocket and how I had a massive collection of the 90s teeny tiny Polly Pockets. And the next day, he while I was talking, had bought this and overnighted it and got me this Polly Pocket Funko. And I just think it's so cute that he did that. So those are on display. And then, yeah, the favorites. And there's my little book nook thing that I made myself right there. Let me turn the light on. There we go. That's better. Now you can see all the stuff. Wow, so cute. And that fancy edition of The Final Strife is just hiding a couple of books over here. Not purposely hiding them, just it's gonna cover stuff, obviously. More favorites. And down here is the same. It's young adult favorites, young adult fantasy favorites. Well, the Queen of Blood one, that's not necessarily young adult, but just some more favorites here. And The Sign, I think, is just hiding more Hunger Games. Yeah. Oh, and my copies of The Bells and the Everlasting Rose, which I want to. Their third book is now out, and I want to get the new covers, so I'll probably unhaul those to get new ones, and then they won't fit. So I'll have to figure that out. And like I said, I moved the historical fiction, mostly unread. Couple that I have read, but most of these are unread. So they're down here, hanging out. This bookcase is largely the same as well. Up top, some cozy historical mystery, a little bit of fantasy romance there to the right. And then down here, this is different slightly. It's mostly Goldsboro books there to the right, and then 2 series there. Joe Abercrombie and Charlene Harris, just unread books. And this is another fantasy shelf, mostly unread books, if not all unread, I'm not quite sure. Oh yeah, that's all unread. And then more fantasy, largely unread, but several here that I have read. And then down here, more fantasy, and I think these are all unread. Yes, they are. And this bookcase is also almost the same, but very slightly different. This is some fantasy romance up here, and then some paranormal stuff. Here is my Wuthering Heights editions, as well as some Great Gatsby editions. More Wuthering Heights, though. And down here is just some classics. And hiding back here is more classics. There we go. Below that is a bunch of, like, essays, and then poetry, and then some childhood books there in the middle. Jeanette Oak, which is like Christian fiction, which I don't read anymore, but very much did as a kid, and I loved Jeanette Oak. Some more classics and stuff to the right. And here we have nonfiction now. I moved that one shelf over here. And the added nonfiction is to the right of it on this bookcase. This shelf here was that shelf there. So just rotated it so that the nonfiction could be side by side at least. And then the rest of this shelf, I just moved everything up, because up at the top here is where all of these books were. So I moved those over there and then just shifted all of these up one. So there at the top, obviously, is Sarah J. Maas. Basically Throne of Glass, but the first 2 books of the ACOTAR series as well. And then here is some more young adult. Quite a few unread, some read though. This is my series of unfortunate events, as well as my Dear America collection I currently have. Definitely working to get more of those though. And then more childhood books for the most part here, like actual physical books that I've owned since I was a kid. And all the way to the right is my handful of holiday books that I like to reread during holiday seasons. And then, yeah, the nonfiction. There we are. Mostly the same. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely day.